We didn't fight. That's the part people don't understand. There was no slammed door, no broken promises shouted across a room. No dramatic ending that made it easy to say, of course it ended. Ours didn't end like that. Ours ended the way a candle goes out, quietly. After doing its best for as long as it could. And maybe that's why it still follows me. Because when a goodbye isn't loud, your heart keeps waiting for the sound. It keeps listening for the moment it can point to and say, there. That's when it died. But with us, there was no moment. Only a slow, soft fading. So gentle. It almost felt like nothing was happening. Until one day, it was. I still remember the last morning you slept beside me, not because it was special. That's what hurts. It wasn't special at all. It was ordinary. The kind of morning we had 100 times, and because it was so normal, I didn't hold it tight enough. The light was thin, like it didn't want to wake anyone. Your breathing was calm. Your face looked peaceful, like you were somewhere else, even in your sleep. I watched you for a moment. I didn't touch you, not because I didn't want to, but because I had started to become careful with you. Careful like someone handling glass they don't want to crack. There was a time I would have pulled you close without thinking. There was a time I would have kissed your shoulder just because it existed. There was a time I would have whispered something stupid in your ear, just to watch you smile with your eyes still closed. But that morning, I just watched. And even now, I can't tell if it was love or fear that kept my hands still. You woke up slowly, blinking into the pale light. You looked at me and you smiled. A small smile, a polite one. Not the smile that said, I'm yours. Not the smile that said, I missed you even while I was asleep. Just a smile. The kind you give a person you care about. The kind you give a person you're trying not to hurt. You said, morning, and I said, morning. And for a few seconds, we were just two people sharing a bed, pretending nothing inside us had changed. Then you sat up. You stretched your arms over your head like you always did, and you asked me if I wanted coffee, and I said yes, and we got up, like normal, like we always did, like we weren't quietly walking toward the end. Back then, I thought love ended because something happened. A betrayal, a mistake, a truth that couldn't be taken back. But our love didn't break. It thinned. It didn't shatter. It softened into something lighter and lighter until there was barely anything left to hold. And I didn't notice at first, because the days still looked the same from the outside. We still texted. We still ate together sometimes. We still asked each other how our day was. We still said, "Be safe." We still said, "Good night." But the warmth behind it, the meaning behind it, started to fade. And the cruel thing about slow endings is that you can still convince yourself you're okay. You can still say, "We're just busy. We're just tired. It's just a season." You can still believe love is in the room, even when it's already walking out the door. It started with little things, not the kind people write poems about, just small shifts. You stopped telling me the tiny details, the funny story from your lunch break, the song you heard in a store that made you think of me. You still told me the big things, the schedules, the plans, the facts. But the small things, the soft things, the things that made your life feel like it included me, those disappeared first. And I didn't call it loss. I called it maturity. I told myself we were just growing up. I told myself we didn't need constant romance to be real. I told myself we were solid. I told myself that because we weren't fighting, we must be fine. But silence can be a kind of leaving, and I didn't understand that yet. Do you remember that day in the grocery store? We were standing in the aisle with the cereal. You were reading labels like it mattered, like the right decision would save us from something. I made a joke, something silly, something I thought would make you laugh. You smiled, just a little, but you didn't laugh. And I remember thinking, did my voice always sound this far away to you? I stood there, holding a box, and suddenly I felt like a stranger trying to be familiar. Not because you were cold, not because you were cruel, but because you were absent, like your body was with me, but your heart had already started packing. On the way home, we drove in quiet, not uncomfortable quiet, not angry quiet, just empty quiet. The kind where no one reaches for the other's hand, because both of you already know you won't feel it the way you used to. I looked out the window and tried to tell myself it was peaceful. But it wasn't peace, it was distance. The hardest part was that you were still kind. You never stopped being kind. You still asked if I ate. You still reminded me to rest. You still fixed my collar without thinking. And that kindness made it confusing. Because how do you grieve someone who hasn't done anything wrong? How do you blame the person who is still gentle with you? How do you look at them and say, "You're leaving me," when they're still here, still smiling, still saying your name? That's the kind of goodbye that doesn't give you permission to hate. So, you don't hate. You just hurt quietly in places nobody can see. I think the moment I started to understand was the night I reached for you in bed and you didn't move. Not because you pulled away, not because you pushed me off. You just stayed still, and your stillness said everything you didn't say out loud. I froze too. My hand rested against your back like a question I was afraid to ask. And I remember thinking, maybe I'm imagining it. So I tried again, smaller this time. Just my fingers, lightly, like I was testing if you were still there. You sighed, a tired sigh, and you turned slightly, just enough to create space. That was it. That was all. And somehow, that tiny movement felt louder than any argument we never had. Because it wasn't anger, it was surrender. It was your body saying, "I can't pretend tonight." And I lay there in the dark with my hand pulled back to my own chest, like even touching you had become something I wasn't allowed to do. I didn't cry, not then. I just stared at the ceiling and tried to breathe like nothing was happening. But something was. Something was ending. Slowly, quietly, without permission. The next day, you were normal again. That's what made it worse. You made breakfast. You asked me what I wanted to do this weekend. You sent me a meme in the afternoon, and I sat with that whiplash, wondering if I had made it all up, wondering if love could be both present and absent at the same time. But that's what fading is. It's not consistent. It comes and goes. Some days the warmth returns and you feel hope. And then the next day, it disappears again, and you feel foolish for believing it. Fading teaches you a dangerous habit. You start collecting proof. You start counting smiles. You start measuring texts. You start listening to the tone of their voice like you're translating a language you used to speak fluently. You start asking yourself, did they say goodnight like they mean it? Did they hug me long enough? Did they look at me or through me? You start living like love is a fragile thing you can monitor. But love isn't meant to be monitored. It's meant to be felt, and when you stop feeling it, your mind becomes a detective, trying to solve a mystery your heart already knows. There was a night you came home late. You looked tired, your shoulders heavy, your eyes full of a kind of exhaustion that wasn't just work. I asked, "Are you okay?" You said, "Yeah." I asked, "Do you want to talk?" You said, "Not really." And I remember nodding like I understood, like I was mature enough to give you space. But inside me, something panicked, because not really used to mean not right now but later. And now it felt like not with you. You showered, you changed into comfortable clothes, you sat on the couch and scrolled your phone. I sat beside you, close enough that our knees almost touched. And it was strange how two people could be that near and still feel like miles. I put my head on your shoulder, just for a second, and you didn't move away. But you didn't lean into me either. You stayed neutral, like you were being careful again, careful not to encourage what you couldn't give. And that's when I realized, sometimes people don't leave because they stop caring. Sometimes they leave because caring is no longer enough to keep them where they are. We had moments of almost truth, little chances where the ending could have been said out loud. Like the day you asked me, "Do you think we're okay?" Your voice was soft, almost casual. You said it while washing dishes, as if it was just another question. But I heard the weight behind it. I could have said, "No." I could have said, "I'm scared." I could have said, "I feel you slipping away." But I didn't. I said, "Yeah, we're fine." And you nodded. And the conversation ended there. Not because we didn't have words, but because we didn't want the words to make it real. That's what quiet goodbyes do. They make you complicit. They make you help hide the truth, because the truth hurts too much to look at directly. And so you both keep living as if love might come back if you don't scare it away. But love doesn't come back because you avoid truth. Sometimes it leaves because truth was avoided for too long. I think you started leaving long before you said anything, in the way you stopped making plans with your eyes. Have you ever noticed that? Some people plan with their words, but they plan with their eyes first. They look at the future like it's a shared place. They talk about next month like it belongs to both of you. You stopped doing that. When I talked about future trips, you said, "Maybe. We'll see. Let's not plan too much." At first, I thought you were just stressed, but later I understood. You couldn't plan a future with me because you weren't sure I was in it anymore. And you didn't want to lie. So you stayed vague. You stayed gentle. You stayed quiet. People think endings are defined by a final sentence, But ours didn't have a sentence. It had 1,000 small pauses. It had longer gaps between texts. It had shorter hugs. It had less laughter. It had conversations that didn't go deep anymore. It had me asking, "Are you tired?" And you saying, "A little." It had you saying, "I'm just busy," and me pretending that was all it was. It had nights where we fell asleep facing opposite directions without even noticing when it became normal. It had kindness without intimacy. It had companionship without hunger. It had love without reaching. And the saddest part is, if someone looked at us from the outside, they would have thought we were fine. Because we were still polite. We were still calm. We still said, "I love you" sometimes. But "I love you" started sounding like a habit, not a confession. Like a song you know by heart, even when you no longer feel the lyrics. Then came the day you asked to talk. You didn't say it like a warning. You said it like someone asking for a glass of water. "Can we talk later?" And I felt my stomach drop even though your voice was gentle. Because some parts of the heart are smarter than the mind. Some parts of me already knew what that sentence meant. But I still tried to be hopeful. I still cleaned the apartment that day like cleanliness could save us. I still cooked dinner like warmth could change your mind. I still tried to be normal because normal had become my favorite lie. When you came home, you sat across from me at the table. You didn't touch your food. You stared at your hands for a moment, like you were trying to find the right order of words. Then you looked up, and your eyes were soft. Not angry, not accusing, just tired. And you said, "I don't think I can do this the way we've been doing it." That was the first real crack in the air. Not loud, not sharp, but undeniable. I didn't speak. I was afraid if I spoke, something would fall apart that I couldn't put back. You continued, slowly. "I care about you. I really do." That sentence is always the worst one, because it's true, and truth is heavy. I feel like I've been trying to find my way back to us, and I can't. You swallowed. Your voice got quieter. And I don't want to keep pretending. I don't want to keep hurting you by staying halfway. Halfway. That word sat between us like a small, harmless thing. But it was huge. Because halfway is where love goes to die slowly. Halfway is where you learn to accept crumbs and call it a meal. Halfway is where your heart loses itself trying to be patient. And you were right. You had been halfway. And I had been too. but hearing it out loud still felt like being pushed underwater. I finally whispered, "So, what does this mean?" And you looked at me for a long time. Your eyes were wet, but you didn't cry. You said, I think it means we should let go." No shouting, no dramatic announcement, just a quiet sentence spoken with shaking hands. And suddenly I understood. This was the goodbye. This was it. This was the end. Not explosive, not cruel, just soft, like a door closing gently. And that gentleness somehow made it harder to breathe. I didn't beg. Not because I didn't want to, but because you looked so certain in your sadness. And there's something heartbreaking about someone who is grieving while they're still with you. I asked, "When did you start feeling this way?" You looked down. "I don't know." You shook your head. "It wasn't one thing. It's been a while." A while. Another vague word. Another gentle word. Another word that made it feel like the ending had been happening even when I was still trying. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. How can you understand something that slowly stole your home while you were still living inside it? I said, "Did I do something wrong?" And you reached across the table and put your hand over mine. Your hand was warm, familiar. And for a moment my heart jumped because touch still meant hope to me. But your eyes didn't. Your eyes said goodbye. You said, "No, you didn't do anything wrong." And I almost wished you would say I did, because if I had done something wrong, there would be something to fix. There would be a reason. There would be a villain. But you didn't give me that. You gave me the worst truth. Sometimes love ends even when nobody is bad. Sometimes two people are gentle and still can't stay. You said, "I think we just changed." And I laughed once, softly, bitterly, because we had always been changing. We had changed together for so long. Why did change suddenly mean separation? But I didn't say that. I just stared at our hands, your fingers on mine. And I realized something terrifying. You could hold my hand and still be leaving. After that conversation, everything became slow, not in a romantic way, in a numb way. We didn't break up in one night. We broke up in small steps. You stayed for another week because you needed time to find a place. And those days were strange. because we were both pretending and not pretending at the same time. We still shared the space. We still cooked. We still asked about each other's day. But there was a new carefulness in everything. Like we were living around a fragile truth we didn't want to bump into. I watched you fold your clothes and put them into a bag. I watched you decide what to keep and what to leave behind. And every item felt symbolic, even though you weren't trying to make it that way. You left your mug, the one you always used. You left a sweater. You left a book you had started reading. And I wanted to scream, "Take it all. Don't leave pieces of you here." But I also wanted to beg, "Leave everything. Stay." So I said nothing, because silence had become our language, and I hated how fluent we were in it. The last night you slept there, I couldn't breathe. Not because you were touching me, because you weren't. You lay on your side, facing away. I lay on mine, staring at the dark. Between us, the space felt like a wall, and I wanted to cross it. I wanted to reach for you the way I used to. I wanted to pull you close and pretend that bodies could override decisions. But I didn't, because I didn't want my love to become a trap. I didn't want to be the reason you felt guilty. I didn't want you to stay because I made leaving too painful. So I stayed still. And in that stillness, I let you go without touching you. That's a kind of heartbreak nobody talks about. Letting someone go while they're still close enough to feel their warmth. At some point in the night, I heard you breathe out, a shaky breath, like you were holding something back. I whispered your name, just once. You didn't turn around, but you said quietly, "Yeah." And I almost broke, because you answered. You were still kind. You were still there. And I said, "Nothing." And you said, "Okay." And we both stared into the dark with our hearts full of words we didn't dare to speak. In the morning, you moved like someone trying not to disturb a sleeping animal. You showered, you got dressed, you made coffee, you didn't make noise. I sat at the edge of the bed and watched you put on your shoes. You looked up at me, and for a moment, your face softened into something familiar. Something that almost looked like regret. You stood. You walked toward me. And I thought, this is the moment. I thought you would sit down beside me. I thought you would say, "I can't do it." I thought you would choose us. But you didn't. You just leaned down and kissed my forehead. A gentle kiss. not passionate, not hungry. A goodbye kiss. And you said, "Take care of yourself, okay?" Your voice cracked just slightly. And I nodded, because nodding was easier than speaking. You picked up your bag. You walked to the door. Your hand rested on the knob for a second. You didn't turn around dramatically. You didn't say a final line. You just paused. And in that pause, I felt the whole relationship hanging in the air like dust in sunlight. Then you opened the door, and you stepped out, and you closed it softly behind you. No slam, no echo, just a click. The smallest sound, the sound of an ending that refused to be loud. And when the door shut, I didn't run after you. I didn't collapse. I just sat there and listened to the silence that followed. It was enormous. It filled the room like water. And I realized I had been living with you for so long that even the air felt different without you. After you left, I kept expecting something. A message, a return, a sudden, "I miss you." I kept checking my phone, not even consciously, like my thumb had learned a habit my heart couldn't break. But your messages were polite. You texted about logistics, when you could pick up the rest of your things, whether you left something behind. You used smiley faces sometimes, as if to soften the reality. And I wanted to hate you for that. Not because you were doing anything wrong, but because it made the goodbye feel incomplete. Like we were still connected. Like there was still a thread. And my heart kept pulling on it until my fingers burned. The day you came to pick up the last box, you stood in the doorway like a guest. That was the strangest part. You weren't a stranger, but you weren't mine. You looked around the room like you were seeing it from far away. You smiled, awkwardly. "Looks the same," you said. I almost laughed, because of course it looked the same. The furniture didn't leave. Only the love did. You picked up the box. You thanked me. You said, "I hope you'll be okay." I nodded again. You stepped back. And then you did something I didn't expect. You hesitated. And you said, softly, "I'm sorry." That's when my chest finally cracked. Because I'm sorry. In a quiet goodbye isn't an apology for wrongdoing. It's an apology for reality. It's a way of saying, I wish love was enough. I didn't want you to be sorry. I wanted you to be here. But all I said was, "Me too." And you nodded, like you understood exactly what I meant. Then you left, again, softly. And I stood in the doorway watching your back disappear down the hall like a song fading out. People asked me later, what happened? And I never knew how to answer. Because what happened was nothing and everything. I didn't have a dramatic story. I didn't have a betrayal. I didn't have a clear villain. All I had was the truth. We loved each other, and then we couldn't anymore. Or maybe we still could, but not in the way we needed. And that kind of ending feels hard to explain because it doesn't give people a clean lesson. There's no obvious moral. Just heartbreak. Just humanity. For a long time, I kept replaying the relationship, like I was searching for the exact moment I should have noticed. The first time your laugh didn't reach your eyes. The first time your "I love you" sounded like a routine. The first time I felt lonely while sitting right beside you. I kept trying to find the moment so I could blame it, so I could understand it. But quiet endings don't have a single moment. They have many. They are made of accumulated softness, the slow decline of effort, the gentle shrinking of connection. They are made of two people who try not to hurt each other until trying not to hurt becomes the very thing that hurts, because truth unspoken doesn't disappear. It just grows heavy in silence. I learned something after you. I learned that love doesn't always end with anger. Sometimes love ends with tenderness. And that's the hardest kind, because tenderness makes you miss them even more. It makes you remember the good clearly. It makes you wonder if you gave up too soon. It makes you forget the emptiness and only remember the warmth. It makes you romanticize a love that was quietly dying. And the heart is cruel that way. It will replay the best moments like they are proof that the ending was a mistake. But memories are not proof. They are echoes. And sometimes you have to let echoes be echoes instead of turning them into a home. I used to think closure was a conversation, a final talk where everything makes sense. But the truth is, closure is often something you build alone. Closure is waking up one morning and not checking your phone first. Closure is walking past the cafe you both loved and not feeling your chest tighten. Closure is hearing a song that used to be yours and letting it pass through you instead of tearing you open. Closure is learning to exist without needing the ending to be loud. Because sometimes the goodbye was quiet, not because it was insignificant, but because it was too gentle to shout, And maybe that's the kind of love we had, a love that didn't break violently, a love that simply let go. Sometimes I still imagine you, not in a way that hurts like before, more like a soft shadow. I imagine you in a different life, walking into a home that isn't mine, taking off your shoes at a door that doesn't belong to us. I imagine you laughing at someone else's joke. I imagine you being held by someone else's arms. And strangely, it doesn't always feel like betrayal. Sometimes it just feels like life. Because you weren't cruel. You weren't a villain. You were just a person who couldn't stay. And I was just a person who wanted you to. And that's the tragedy. Not that someone hurt someone, but that love alone was not enough to keep two lives aligned. If I could talk to you now, I don't think I would ask for you back. I think I would just say, I understand. Not because understanding makes it painless, but because understanding makes it human. I would say, I'm sorry it ended like that. And maybe you would say, me too. And then we would stand in a silence that doesn't feel empty anymore. A silence that feels complete. Because sometimes the loudest goodbyes are not the ones that are shouted. Sometimes the loudest goodbyes are the ones you feel for years because they ended so softly that your heart didn't know when to stop holding on. And if you're listening to this with your own quiet goodbye in your chest, if you're someone who didn't get a dramatic ending, if you're someone whose love faded without a clear reason, I just want you to know you're not crazy for still feeling it. You're not weak for missing what was gentle. You're not foolish for grieving an ending that didn't give you a scar you can point to. Some heartbreaks are invisible. Some endings are whispers. And whispers, they linger. But so do you. And one day, you will wake up and the silence will not feel like punishment anymore. It will feel like space. A place where something new can grow. A place where your heart can rest without waiting for the door to slam. Because the goodbye already happened. It just happened softly, and you survived it. Quietly. Just like that. I still remember that door. That gentle click. Not because it was loud, but because it was final. And maybe, in a strange way, I'm grateful it wasn't loud. Because a loud goodbye would have made you easy to hate. And I never wanted to hate you. I wanted to love you. I did love you. And even now, in the softest corner of my memory, I think I always will. In the way we loved the things that shaped us, even if they didn't stay. And that's what our ending was. Not a storm, not a fire, just a quiet sunset that left the sky beautiful even as the light disappeared. And if that's all it was, then maybe that's enough. Maybe the love was real, because it could end gently. Maybe the goodbye wasn't loud because the love was never meant to be loud. Maybe it was always meant to be soft. And maybe soft love doesn't need a dramatic ending. It only needs the truth. We were here. We were real. And then we let go. Quietly. The goodbye that wasn't loud, but was still a goodbye. Still an ending. Still a love. And now, a memory, a soft one, the kind you can carry without bleeding, the kind you can whisper to yourself on nights when you miss what was gentle, and still choose to move forward, slowly, quietly, with love and with peace.